The night was supposed to be quiet. Just a peaceful walk through the park, a moment for Harrison Chase and Brook Lynn Quartermaine to breathe after weeks of emotional stress. But in Port Charles, quiet moments rarely stay quiet for long. Because on that night, Chase and Brook Lynn found something that would change their lives forever. A young woman lay unconscious on a park bench, her body trembling, her breathing weak and her stomach painfully swollen with the unmistakable signs of late pregnancy. For a split second, Brook Lynn froze. But Chase reacted instantly. He rushed to the woman's side, checking her pulse while calling for help. The situation was already terrifying, but the woman suddenly woke up just enough to whisper something that made the moment even stranger. She insisted nothing was wrong. Even though she was clearly in distress. Even though she could barely sit up. Even though the life inside her was moments away from being born. That was the first mystery. Why was this woman alone in the middle of the park, about to give birth with no family, no friends and no explanation? Brook Lynn didn't hesitate. Together, she and Chase rushed the woman straight to General Hospital. And from that moment forward, nothing about that night would ever feel normal again. Because the woman introduced herself as Delilah. But what happened next would leave everyone wondering if that name was even real. Inside General Hospital, doctors moved quickly. Delilah was placed under immediate examination as nurses rushed around preparing equipment. Brook Lynn stayed right beside her. In fact, when Delilah asked her to come into the exam room, Brook Lynn didn't hesitate for even a second. She walked in and took the frightened woman's hand. And in that moment, something unexpected happened. A connection. A bond between two women who had only known each other for minutes, but who suddenly felt connected by something deeper. Brook Lynn tried to comfort her. She whispered that everything would be okay. She promised the doctors would help. But Delilah's fear never faded. Instead, she squeezed Brook Lynn's hand tighter, as if she knew something terrible was about to happen. And then the situation took a dramatic turn. Doctors realized the baby was in serious distress. There was no time to wait. No time for discussion. Delilah needed an emergency C-section immediately. Suddenly, the room exploded into chaos. Doctors moved fast, nurses called for surgical teams, machines began to beep. Brook Lynn felt herself being gently pushed toward the door. She didn't want to leave. But the medical staff insisted. And just before she stepped out of the room, Delilah looked at her with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. As if she wanted Brook Lynn to remember her. As if she needed someone in the world to witness what was about to happen. Brook Lynn never forgot that look. Because only minutes later, everything changed. Baby Jane was born fighting for her life. Doctors worked desperately to stabilize the fragile newborn. Machines surrounded the tiny baby. Every second felt like an eternity. And in the hallway outside, Chase and Brook Lynn waited in silence. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them moved. Because both of them knew the truth. Sometimes in General Hospital miracles happen. But sometimes they don't. And that night tragedy struck. Delilah didn't survive the surgery. She died shortly after giving birth. Just like that, a young woman who had appeared out of nowhere was gone. Leaving behind only a newborn baby girl. A baby with no known family. No known fathers. And no real identity connected to her mother. Suddenly, the mystery surrounding Delilah became even deeper. Because when Detective Nathan West examined her belongings, things only became more confusing. There was no identification in her purse. No driver's license. No documents. Nothing that proved who she really was. The name Delilah might not even have been real. And that raised a terrifying question. If no one knew who she truly was, then how could anyone find baby Jane's family? Meanwhile, inside the neonatal unit, the tiny newborn continued fighting. Doctors called her Baby Jane, a temporary name for a child whose real story remained unknown. But for Brook Lynn and Chase, the baby was already more than just a name. They felt responsible. After all, they were the ones who found Delilah. They were the ones who brought her to the hospital. And now, somehow, they felt connected to the little life she left behind. That feeling grew stronger when Brook Lynn stepped into the nursery for the first time. She saw the tiny baby lying inside the incubator. So small, so fragile, so alone. And something inside Brook Lynn's heart shifted. Because only days earlier, she and Chase had been discussing something life-changing. They had decided to move forward with adopting a child. The decision hadn't been easy, especially after Chase learned that he could not father children biologically. That truth had shaken both of them deeply. But instead of giving up on their dream of becoming parents, they chose another path. Adoption. In fact, they had already asked Alexis Davis to begin the legal process. They were ready to start their journey toward building a family. And then fate placed baby Jane directly in their paths. A newborn with no parents, no relatives, no one stepping forward. And the more time Brook Lynn spent near that tiny crib, the more impossible it became to ignore the feeling growing inside her heart. Could this be the child they were meant to raise? But the answer to that question wouldn't come easily. Because the mystery surrounding baby Jane had only just begun. And the truth about her mother might change everything. As days passed, investigators continued searching for clues about Delilah. But every lead seemed to collapse. No hospital records matched her. No missing persons reports fit her description. No family members called looking for her. It was as if the woman had appeared in Port Charles only to vanish completely. That alone was disturbing. But it also created a serious legal problem. Without confirmed relatives, without a known father, without even a verified identity for the mother, baby Jane existed in a strange legal grey area. Which meant adoption would not be simple. Not even close. And that's when Brook Lynn began to realize something frightening. Even if she and Chase wanted to adopt the baby, the law might not allow it. But what Brook Lynn didn't know yet was that someone powerful in Port Charles might soon hold the key to solving that problem. And that person was Willow Keynes. But before Chase asks her for help, a shocking new clue about Delilah is about to surface. One that could turn baby Jane's entire story upside down. And it might prove that Delilah's arrival in the park was not an accident at all. The longer baby Jane remained at General Hospital, the more complicated her future became. At first, everyone believed the mystery would be solved quickly. Someone would come forward. A family member, a friend, maybe even the baby's father. But days turned into weeks. And still nothing. No one called. No one visited. No one claimed the child. The silence surrounding Delilah's identity was becoming almost impossible to explain. Detective Nathan West continued searching for answers, but every new lead only created more questions. There were no matching hospital records under the name Delilah. No social security information. No address. No known relatives. It was as if the woman had walked into Port Charles from another world. And then vanished forever. But while investigators searched for answers, something else was happening quietly inside General Hospital. Something emotional. Something powerful. Something that was slowly changing Brook Lynn Quartermaine's heart. Because every day she visited baby Jane. Every single day. Sometimes she stood beside the tiny incubator in silence. Other times she gently spoke to the newborn, telling her that everything would be okay. Chase watched it happen. At first he didn't say much. But he saw the way Brook Lynn's eyes softened whenever she looked at the baby. He saw the way her voice changed when she spoke to her. And slowly something inside Chase began to shift too. Because the truth was impossible to ignore. They were already bonding with this child. And the deeper that bond grew, the harder it would be to walk away. But that raised a difficult question neither of them had dared to say out loud. What if baby Jane really had no one else? One evening, Brook Lynn finally said what had been on both of their minds. She and Chase sat together quietly in the hospital waiting area. Neither of them had planned to have this conversation. But emotions had been building for days. Brook Lynn took a deep breath. Then she said something that made Chase's heart race. What if she's meant to be ours? The words hung in the air. Heavy, dangerous, hopeful. Chase didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was, he had been thinking the exact same thing. Just weeks earlier, they had made the life-changing decision to adopt. After learning he couldn't have biological children, Chase had struggled with feelings of guilt and disappointment. He felt like he had failed Brook Lynn's, but Brook Lynn had refused to see it that way. To her, building a family had never been about biology. It was about love. And they were ready to start that journey together. They had already contacted Alexis Davis to begin the legal process. Everything was moving forward. And then fate placed baby Jane directly into their lives. A newborn with no family. A baby they had already grown to care about deeply. It almost felt like destiny. But destiny wasn't the same thing as the law. And unfortunately, the legal system wasn't nearly as simple as following your heart. When Chase and Brook Lynn spoke with Alexis Davis about the situation, the truth became painfully clear. Adopting baby Jane would be extremely complicated. Without confirmed parents, without legal documentation, without someone with parental rights to sign adoption consent, the process could become a legal nightmare. Even if Delilah truly had no family, even if no father stepped forward, even if baby Jane was eventually placed in the foster system, it could take months, maybe even years. And there was no guarantee that Chase and Brook Lynn would be the ones chosen to adopt her. That reality hit Brook Lynn hard. Because the thought of losing baby Jane after already bonding with her felt unbearable. But Alexis explained something important. Sometimes in rare cases, legal exceptions could be made. Especially if someone with significant authority helped push the process forward. Someone who could sign off on emergency adoption motions. Someone with political influence. Someone who had the power to move things through complicated government channels. And suddenly Chase thought of someone. Someone who might owe him a very big favor. Willow Keynes. Willow's life had changed dramatically over the past year. After surviving countless personal battles and political challenges, she had stepped into a powerful new role. She was now a congresswoman. A rising figure in Washington, but still deeply connected to Port Charles. Which meant she had influence. Real influence. The kind that could open doors when traditional legal paths hit roadblocks. But Chase didn't feel comfortable asking her for help. Not right away. Because asking a congresswoman to assist with an adoption case was no small request. It meant using political authority. It meant bending complicated legal procedures. But Brook Lynn reminded him of something important. Chase had once gone above and beyond to help Willow. In fact, he had taken huge risks during the investigation into Drew Kane's shooting. He pushed boundaries. He crossed lines. All to help clear Willow's name when suspicion surrounded her. And because of that, Willow had promised something. She owed him. Which meant Chase might finally call in that favor. But before he makes that decision, something unexpected happens. Because a shocking new development is about to shake the entire situation surrounding baby Jane. One afternoon, Nathan West arrives at the hospital with new information. And what he says leaves Chase and Brook Lynn stunned. A potential lead about Delilah has finally appeared. But it doesn't bring answers. It brings more mystery. Because the name Delilah may not belong to the woman who died at all. Investigators have discovered something strange. A woman matching Delilah's description may have been seen in another city weeks earlier, using a completely different name. If that report is true, then Delilah may have been hiding her identity intentionally. Which raises a chilling possibility. Was she running from someone? Was she protecting the baby? Or was something much darker happening behind the scenes? Suddenly, baby Jane's story becomes even more complicated. Because if Delilah had enemies, if someone dangerous was connected to her past, then baby Jane might not just be an abandoned child. She might be the center of a much larger mystery. And that mystery could still be unfolding. But for now, one truth remains clear. Baby Jane needs someone. Someone to protect her. Someone to love her. Someone to give her the family she deserves. And every day that passes, Brook Lynn and Chase feel more certain about one thing. They don't want to walk away. They want to be that family. Now the question becomes, will the law allow it? Or will the secrets surrounding Delilah's past create obstacles no one can overcome? And if Chase asks Willow for help, will she be willing to use her power to change baby Jane's future? Or will doing so create a political storm that could threaten everything she's built? One thing is certain, this story is only just beginning. And the mystery surrounding baby Jane may lead to secrets that could shake Port Charles in ways no one expected. But now we want to hear from you. Do you think baby Jane is truly meant to become Brook Lynn and Chase's daughter? Or do you believe someone from Delilah's past will suddenly appear and change everything? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy daily updates, spoilers, and deep dives into the biggest General Hospital storylines, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next in Port Charles. Because on General Hospital, the biggest twists are always just one episode away.